Swami Vivekananda, he writes to one of his American disciples, I think it was Josephine McLeod probably. He wrote that I have started these two places, one in the Himalayas for non-dualism. So that is Advaita Ashram in Mayavati up in the Himalayas. And one here on the bank of the Ganges, which he's referring to Belur Math, with all rituals, all traditional worship. And then Swami Vivekananda says, let's see how it goes. So after more than 100 years, by far the much more popular and well-known and beloved place is Belur Math, with all the ritual and the devotion and the music and the pujas and all of it together. And the ashram in the Himalayas continues to be an austere place, still beloved, but still both are doing well. I guess Belur Math is doing much better. I myself was never particularly drawn to ritualistic worship. I've never been particularly interested, but whenever I have practiced it, and it's in the Ramakrishna order, everybody has to do ritualistic worship for some time. Whenever I have practiced it, I've only been benefited by it. I've found it very beneficial. It creates a sattvic bhava in the mind, a sattvic attitude in the mind. It certainly creates a spiritual atmosphere around it. Is ritualistic worship. So Durga Puja is as ritualistic as you can get. So take a look if you like sometime. Now we can start. Om Tavakatamritam Tattajivanam Kaviviritam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvigrinantiye Bhuridajanam. On a personal note that the person who is directing the puja, it's called the Tantradharak. So, he's the one, you'll see the monk who is chanting the mantras. Because it's a Vedic puja, only a brahmachari can do it. A sannyasi is not supposed to do that kind of ritual. So you'll see the sannyasis are there, they are watching, they are helping, but they don't actually perform the puja. But the puja is performed by a brahmachari, somebody who has the Shikha Sutra. So traditionally, only that person is authorized or allowed to do such a ritual. But the person who is directing the puja, the Tantradharak, so he is my friend. He's a monk of the same batch, actually. So we joined the order. We met when we joined the order some 26 years ago in Deoghar. It's wonderful to see him. He is very ritualistic. So, yeah. Swami Tattva Sarananda. Now, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we are studying the visit to Vidyasagar, and it's a very rich section. So we have been making slow progress. I am on page 104. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying to Vidyasagar, in the middle of page 104. The Vijnani sees that Brahman is immovable. We have done this, and actionless, like Mount Sumeru. The universe consists of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. They are in Brahman, but Brahman is unattached. The Vijnani further sees that what is Brahman is the Bhagavan, the personal God. He who is beyond the three gunas is the Bhagavan, with his 6 supernatural powers. Living beings, the universe, mind, intelligence, love, renunciation, knowledge, all these are manifestations of his power. With a laugh, if an aristocrat has neither house nor property, or if he has been forced to sell them, one doesn't call him an aristocrat anymore. All laugh. God is endowed with the 6 supernatural powers. If he were not, who would obey him? All laugh. Just see how picturesque this universe is, how many things there are.
the sun, moon, and stars, and how many varieties of living beings, big and small, good and bad, strong and weak, some endowed with more power, some with less. Vidyasagar, has he endowed some with more power and others with less? Master, as the all-pervading spirit, he exists in all beings, even in the ant, but the manifestation of his power are different in different beings. Otherwise, how can one person put 10 to flight while another can't face even one? And why do all people respect you? Have you grown a pair of horns? Laughter. You have more compassion and learning. Therefore, people honor you and come to pay you their respects. Don't you agree with me? Vidyasagar smiled. So one should follow what's the subtext, what's going on there. When he says the Vijnani sees that Brahman is immovable and actionless like Mount Sumeru, that's the absolute reality. That's the Brahman of Advaita Vedanta. Existence, consciousness, bliss, beyond any possibility of change. You know, sometimes we say that Brahman is changeless and the universe is ever changing. Actually, that's not even an accurate way of putting it. Beyond Brahman is beyond any change or changelessness. Even the concept of something static and dynamic, that is within this universe. But there's no possibility of any kind of change or changelessness also. That idea doesn't apply there. So existence, consciousness, bliss. Then what about the universe? It's all the play of Maya. So what is Maya in relation to the Brahman of Advaita Vedanta? So here Sri Ramakrishna says, the universe consists of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Maya is three gunas. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, is the classical Vedantic definition of Maya. If you remember Vedanta Sara, Trigunatmakam, which is composed of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They are in Brahman, but Brahman is unattached. These two sentences together, you can generate all the systems of Vedanta from these two sentences. There is an absolute reality, and Maya, the power of Maya, is in that reality, but that reality is completely unattached, is unattached to this. Now think about this. What does it mean unattached? If X is in Y, there's a real thing X and it's a real thing Y, how can they not be in contact? How can one not affect the other? The only way one is in another thing and does not affect that if one is false and the other is real. If they belong to two different levels of reality. Shankaracharya makes this point. He says that in a desert, there is a mirage, and you can see water. But all the water in the mirage is not sufficient to wet even one grain of sand in the desert. Why not? So Sri Ramakrishna here will say the mirage and the desert, the desert is unattached to the mirage. But unattached in what sense? It's not that there is a desert and there is a mirage, and somehow the desert is not affected by the water in the mirage. The water in the mirage is not of the same reality as the desert. From the perspective of the desert, there is no water. So it just looks like that. Therefore, the desert is unaffected. Similarly, from the perspective of the absolute reality, there is no Maya. There's no such second thing called Maya. But apparently, as an appearance, which explains the entire world appearance, there is Maya. So from to that perspective. So this, if you make it two different levels of reality, Brahman and Maya, and therefore Brahman and this entire universe, two different levels of reality. Brahman is the reality, and the entire universe is an appearance. If you do that, you get Advaita Vedanta. But if you make Maya, now don't call it Maya, call it Shakti, and you make it a real power of God. God, Brahman is real, Sachidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, but further has a real power. It's a real feature, quality, power, ability of God. Then it becomes what Advaita Vedanta calls Saguna Brahman, Brahman with attributes, which is the God of religion. So there Maya is real, and Maya is the power of Brahman. Now, in what sense then Sri Ramakrishna says, but Brahman is unattached? in that sense only that Brahman is the Lord, or God is the Lord of Maya. Brahman or Bhagavan or Ishvara is the Lord of Maya. In Sanskrit, Maya Dhisha. Just like, and he gives many examples. The serpent has all the poison in its mouth, in its glands. It doesn't affect the serpent, but it's the power of the serpent. Even a tiny bit of that is enough to knock out the prey of the serpent. A frog or a mouse will be knocked out. Similarly, the Maya has its effect on us. We forget God, we get immersed in samsara, we forget our real nature, and the whole of samsara becomes real for us, and we keep being whirled round and round in samsara. But God is not affected by Maya, is not trapped in samsara by Maya. It is the power of God. In that sense, God is unattached, in the sense that it's not affected. Then you can have systems like, Vishishta Dvaita, Dvaita Vedanta, all of that. So in that case, God is real, Brahman is real, the power of Brahman is real, the products of that power, the entire universe and the jivas, they are also real. So you have a different system altogether. Multiple systems can come out of this. See, here he says, the universe consists of three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They are in Brahman. So Maya is in Brahman, and Brahman is unattached. If he had said they are not real, Brahman is the only reality, that would have been classic Advaita Vedanta. But he gives what mathematicians might call a more general case. You can spin off all other philosophies from this, including Advaita Vedanta. Now he goes further. The Vijnani, the person who has the fullest realization. What does that person see? That Brahman is God. Satchidananda, Nirguna, Nirakara Brahman, the absolute reality of Advaita Vedanta, the ultimate reality, is also the highest reality of religion, God. Brahman is the Bhagavan, the personal God. This is crucial. This move is crucial. You can have Advaita Vedanta, a radical kind of Advaita Vedanta, which accepts Saguna Brahman, Ishvara, Bhagavan, but only at the level of the world. So God, world, and individual are appearances of one absolute reality, which is Brahman. Or Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat in Sanskrit are appearances of Nirguna Brahman. Not Saguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman itself is an appearance of Nirguna Brahman. The world is false. Jagat is an appearance. It's a false appearance. The Jiva is false to the extent that it's not a Jiva, but it is actually that Nirguna Brahman. Then what is the status of Saguna Brahman, of Ishvara? Is Ishvara false, or is it Nirguna Brahman? It is actually Nirguna Brahman. Ishvara is always, God of the universe is always aware of the absolute reality. I am that absolute reality. So are you all, but we are not aware of it. So this is a very crucial distinction. This is from the Advaitic perspective. Now what Sri Ramakrishna says, Vijnana, is that the absolute reality, the Advaita, non-dual reality of Advaita Vedanta is also the God of religion, and not, notice, he is not bringing in the fact that it's an appearance, or the teaching it's an appearance. They are the same reality, and he's not privileging the Advaitic position above the personal God. At least he's not mentioning that here. What would Advaita Vedanta do? Oh, so the absolute reality, Nirguna Brahman, appears as Saguna Brahman, Jiva, and Jagat, the personal God of religion, the universe, and us. But we are all at the level of appearance. We are all really Brahman. So is that what Sri Ramakrishna is saying? Doesn't seem so. He would always say that the two are same. He's not, in Advaitic, from the Advaitic perspective, the Advaitic absolute reality is privileged above the personal God of religion. So, for example, if someone is very devoted to God and feels that I am this limited being, I am being whirled around in samsara, I have faith in God. I believe in my Krishna or Rama. I believe in my Durga, which is the Durga Puja now. Is that enough? I don't know about anything beyond one absolute reality, existence, consciousness, bliss. So Advaita Vedanta would say, no, that's not the final thing. The final thing is the absolute reality, Satchidananda, beyond this, where you can say that Aham Brahmasmi, I am that. As a devotee, I can say I am a child of the mother. I can't say I am the mother of the same reality. You can't. I, as a limited being, I, as a devotee, I cannot claim to be one with God, or I can claim to be one with God at the most as a tiny infinitesimal fraction, tiny part of God in a Vishishtadvaitic sense, but not in the non-dualistic sense. So the Advaitin will say that that's not enough. But Sri Ramakrishna seems to say that that's enough. You can see it as the dualistic personal God, the non-dualistic Brahman, and both are the same reality. This is the Vijnana perspective. Ayan Maharaj Swami Medhananda has written a whole book on this, that infinite paths to infinite reality. So it's based on this crucial move, let's say. So now he's talking about the Saguna Brahman. So the moment he says some endowed with more power, some with less, Vidyasagar says, has he endowed some with more power and others with less? Why did he ask this question? See, from an Advaitic perspective, Brahman, the absolute reality. So is there more Brahman in, say, an elephant and less Brahman in a mouse? Is there more Brahman in a very learned person and less Brahman in an illiterate person? More Brahman in a quasar or a galaxy and less Brahman in an atom or a quark? No, size does not matter. Learning does not matter. Wealth does not matter. All of us, even spiritual development does not matter. Is there more Brahman in Sri Ramakrishna and less Brahman in us? No. The reality is the same. And it appears in all these forms. So from that perspective, immediately Vidyasagar catches hold of that. So really, ultimately, there are differences. There are some are better, some are greater, some are not so great or not. So from an Advaitic perspective, we'd say it just looks like that. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, Brahman is the only reality. But Sri Ramakrishna goes the other way. He says, of course, there is a difference, but he makes it clear. As the all-pervading spirit, he exists in all beings, even in the ant. The implied thing being that he's the same in all beings. From Brahman's perspective, he's same. He's completely preserving the Advaitic proposition. But he said, now look at the manifestation. Look at how we experience the universe. You can't deny that we experience the universe in these diverse ways. Manifestations of his power are different in different beings. Otherwise, and then he gives example. One person can put 10 people to flight in a fight. And then look at you. You are so respected. He was a leading social reformer of his time, a great scholar, educationist, and so on. And so many people, they really, really respected him. Even now, he's a big figure in Bengal, Vidyasagar. So why do people respect you? Have you grown a pair of horns? Are you just a human being like anybody else? So it's not that, it's a Bengali idiom that the cows, suddenly you have two horns and people come to see what's happened to him. Nothing has happened like to you, but you have these extraordinary qualities. You have compassion, you have learning, and people honor you and come to meet you and pay their respects. So don't you agree there? These are very subtle moves. See, from an Advaitic perspective, we have to be very careful here. How much reality will you give to these differences? And Sri Ramakrishna says, from his perspective, he's saying, don't bother about that. The Lord has given these extraordinary, call them manifestations, call them real powers, real differences. These are there. As long as you see the one divinity in all beings, there's no harm. If you notice the differences, someone is more holy, someone is worldly. So these differences are there. And these differences are the play of the Divine Mother. They're all in the realm of Maya. And see what Advaita Vedanta would make of these differences. Let me tell you a classic story from a Uttarakhand, Himalayan, non-dualistic perspective. Then you'll contrast it with this. Sri Ramakrishna is not saying what I'm going to say now. Sri Ramakrishna is not saying that. But if you ask a non-dualistic monk sitting in Gangotri, what do you think of this? Somebody who is, higher, more learned, more holy, and somebody who's just the opposite. So this is important, right? This distinction. He would say, no, distinction is not important. From the perspective of enlightenment, these distinctions are all appearances. You have to go beyond both and see the same reality beyond both. So the story goes like this. The great sage Shukadeva, who is a well-known figure in all these stories. So he's a fully enlightened being. So he comes to meet Shiva. I've told this story earlier, I think. He comes to meet Shiva. And he doesn't even bow down. The great Lord Shiva, Shuka comes, I think maybe for like a power lunch or something like that, or working meeting or some working lunch, and doesn't even bow down. He just talks with him. And the Divine Mother, whom we are worshipping now, Parvati, Gauri, she is looking and glaring at Shukadeva and said, this is not protocol. You're supposed to bow down to the Lord of the universe. So finally he takes leave and goes away. The sage goes away. And then the Divine Mother, Parvati, she goes to Shiva, her husband, and says, that boy has become arrogant. Did you notice? He didn't even bow down to you. And Shiva says, no, he's just innocent. He's not aware of these, this protocol and formalities. He is a pure child. Then Parvati says, no, he needs to be taught a lesson. This is very bad, indisciplined. And Shiva knows that she has a mother heart. So he just says, all right, whatever you think fit. And so she appears before the sage. And the sage says, hello, you are here. And she says that you walk around, you become so proud, you walk around, the language used in Hindi was oot jaisa, like a camel with your nose stuck up in the air. You're walking around like that, and you don't seem to have any humility. I didn't expect this from a sage, a saint like you, a sage like you. Well, you got to learn, to be respectful of Shiva. And so be a camel. Since you're so fond of walking around like a camel with your nose in the air, be a camel. And the sage says, fine. And he becomes a camel. And then she comes back, satisfied that she has taught him a lesson. A few days later, after all, she's the mother, so she is a little worried that she's been too harsh with him. So she sort of says to Shiva, I wonder how that boy is doing. I made him into a camel. He must be really unhappy. Shiva knows. He smiles. He knows that she will regret it within a few days. So he says, why don't you go and find out? And she was only waiting to be told. So she said, yes, I was thinking that. Let me go and see. So she appears before that camel, and sort of the camel is eating bushes and walking around. And so she asks tauntingly, well, oh sage, how are things? How are you liking life as a camel? And the camel can, of course, speak perfect Sanskrit. So he replies, he says, oh Devi, it's fine. It's exactly the same thing. In fact, life is even better now. When I was a sage, a rishi, and in the ashram, I had so many duties. I had to teach the Vedas to these silly brahmacharis, and I had to perform these rituals and give talks in Vedanta and things like that. Now I don't have to do anything. Nobody bothers me. I just wander around at my sweet will. And the language there is a little more salty than used. I mean, the monk who told the story, he said, now I can go and pee wherever I want. Nobody stops me. And I eat whenever I want. I eat these bushes. And now the Parvati, the Divine Mother, thought, oh, but this misfired. He didn't learn any lesson at all. He's so happy. So she says, oh, all right, just go back to being what you were. And immediately he changes and becomes the sage Shukadeva. It shows in the world of names and forms, whatever is there in the universe, whatever is going on in the universe, it's the Divine Mother's will. Who is what and does what, and whatever, who has more power, less power, who has more glory, less glory, more learning, and all of this, what Sri Ramakrishna is talking about, it's entirely the will of the Divine Mother. She can change it in the twinkling of an eye. But the reality behind it is Shiva, one reality. Now, Shukadeva is centered in that. To him, all these differences are like movies. You want to switch off this movie, the Shukadeva movie, and play the camel movie? Fine with me. I know I am the screen. It doesn't make any difference to me, actually. You can play any movie you want or no movie at all. It's fine with me. So the Divine Mother is in charge of changing the channel. But Shukadeva is absolutely fine with any program that plays because he knows he's the screen. He has no particular preference for this one or that one. And that's a very Advaitic approach to the whole thing, non-dualistic approach, giving no value whatsoever to these differences. But Sri Ramakrishna is saying here that note that these differences are because of the Divine Mother, and it is her will that you have more compassion, you have more learning, and therefore you have more power. Divine Mother has given you more power, maintaining the fact that behind everything, the same reality, Shiva, existence, consciousness, bliss, is exactly the same reality. So these are subtle movements. Philosophically, they are very interesting. Let me see that there are any comments before I go ahead. Prabir Basu says, can one perform ritualistic worship praying for Advaita Jnana? Certainly. One can perform ritualistic worship, one can pray to God, one can meditate. All of these practices, one can do, social work, service, all of that. And all of these will be helpful for enlightenment, for non-dual knowledge. Jai Shri Shankar says, how does prayer differ from ritualistic worship? Does ritualistic worship means performing homams? Yes. So prayer is a part of ritualistic worship. It's a mental, like it can mental, it can be verbal. It is an appeal or to the divine, asking for something or just asking for blessings. But if it is encased in action, so that action is ritualistic action. You can worship God through action, and the action can be Laukika Vedika. Laukika means worldly or secular. So all our worldly actions, they become divinized, they become spiritualized the moment we do them as worship of God. You're teaching in a school, you're cooking food, you're cleaning the house. All of these can be divinized. They can be spiritual and should be, just by a change in attitude. And then there are particular actions which you would not normally perform. They are part of a particular religious tradition. So in Christianity, the closest would be Catholicism, which has many rituals. Protestant churches have much less. Hinduism is famous for enormous amount of proliferation of rituals. They're all actions, they're physical actions. They're all accompanied by prayer. So prayer would be like verbal chanting of mantras, some of which are prayers, some of which are praises or hymns to the divinity you are worshipping. And there would be mental prayer. So mentally you are praying to God or meditating on God. That is called upasana. Bindu is saying, so is Sri Ramakrishna talking more in line of Kashmir Shaivism? Actually, that is true. If you want any one of the classical philosophies which is closest to what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, it would be Kashmiri Shaivism, or it could be what is called Shaktadvaita. Closer. Not literally what he's saying, because there are places where he dismisses the word as false also. He says, he gives the example of the farmers, who saw seven, he was a king and he had 7 princes in a dream, and he wakes up and he finds his only son has died. So he says, whom will I weep for? The 7 princes who disappeared when the dream broke, or this one child who has died in the waking state. Now, literally, that is equating, in a very radical way, equating waking state with dream state, which is Gaudapada, which is as good as Gaudapada's Mandukya Karika. That Kashmiri Shaivism would never do. Kashmiri Shaivism regards the world as real. It makes a clear distinction between the waking state and the dream state. So it is not literally exactly equal to Kashmiri Shaivism, but yes, a lot of what Sri Ramakrishna teaches is better understood through Kashmiri Shaivism than, say, for example, classical Advaita Vedanta. In fact, that's how the I heard of Kashmiri Shaivism for the first time about 26, 27 years ago. Professor Arindam Chakrabarti, who is now in University of Hawaii. I met him at the Institute of Culture in Gold Park in Kolkata in some seminar. And afterwards, he was telling me that, Swami, if you want to understand Gospel, Kathamrita, better, please study a system called Kashmiri Shaivism. I didn't even know what it was, Kashmiri Shaivism. But let me just again repeat. It's not also exactly what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So Kashmiri Shaivism and the Vijnana Vedanta which Sri Ramakrishna is talking about, they're not exactly congruent, because Vijnana Vedanta would include Advaita Vedanta. Kashmiri Shaivism cannot include Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta, the insistence on the falsity of the world, the appearance nature of the world, Kashmiri Shaivism doesn't say that. It's a through and through realistic system. Though many times it seems to say that. So that's the problem with Kashmiri Shaivism. It's not entirely logically consistent throughout. One thing about Advaita Vedanta is it's very logically consistent. It's a very neat system. Kashmiri Shaivism is a much more messy system. So it's much more sophisticated, much more complex. I mean, my feeling about Kashmiri Shaivism, and this was approved by one of the leading authorities today, Professor Sthaneshwar Timalsena. I had a conversation with him. In that conversation, you'll see, I asked him that, how do you account for Kashmiri Shaivism as a system of thought? Is it like, if you look at the experiences of sadhakas, spiritual seekers, the various samadhis they have, the various visions they have, the various lights and sounds they see, extraordinary variety of deities they worship and have visions of. If you take all of that seriously and you assign some philosophical status to each of those experiences, then you will get Kashmiri Shaivism. Is it a philosophy which grounds, or which is grounded in the phenomenology of spiritual experience? This is how I put it. Is it a philosophy that is grounded, it is born of the phenomenology of spiritual experience? By phenomenology, we mean how it feels to us. What would Advaita Vedanta do? It would say, wonderful, you had this vision, that vision, oh, congratulations, but now be aware, notice that it is the same consciousness which had all these visions and, whether worldly experiences, spiritual experiences. What is that consciousness? Go back to that. Kashmiri Shaivism doesn't do that. It gives importance to all these visions, gives importance, some ranking, some kind of value to all of it. That's why it is so complex. Swami Mahendranath Ayan Maharaj, who wrote that book, Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality, he calls Kashmiri Shaivism a Baroque philosophy. Baroque, in the art, it's very intricate, with a tremendous amount of detail and variation. So Kashmiri Shaivism is like that. It seems to be just the opposite of Advaita Vedanta in certain features, like the detail and variety and complexity. But Advaita Vedanta is very simple. Can you express Kashmiri Shaivism in one sentence? You can't. You will leave out lots of things. Can you express Advaita Vedanta in one sentence? Of course. Tattvamasi is good enough. Vishwanath says, Ramana Maharshi defines puja as Jagata Ishadi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhrid Deva Pujanam. Okay. Service to the world itself is his worship. This is similar to Kashmiri Shaivism. No, I think this follows more from Advaita Vedanta. Difference between Sri Vidya and Brahma Vidya. So Brahma Vidya is basically, the teaching of the Upanishads. That is Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is the knowledge about Brahman, the realization that you are Brahman. Sri Vidya is a tantric, very sophisticated and powerful tantric practice. It can give you Brahma Vidya, and also it can give you everything else also, like Dharma, Artha, Kama, plus Moksha, all of that. So it is, but you have to be initiated in that, of course. It is more popular in the south. In the north, Karpatri Maharaj was the strong proponent of Sri Vidya. The master continued, there is nothing in mere scholarship. The object of study is to find means of knowing God and realizing Him A holy man had a book. When asked what it contained, he opened it and showed that on all the pages were written the words Om Rama and nothing else. What is the significance of the Gita? It is what you find by repeating the word 10 times. It is then reversed into Tagi, which means a person who has renounced everything for God. And the lesson of the Gita is, O man, renounce everything and seek God alone. Whether a man is a monk or a householder, he has to shake off all attachment from his mind. So two nice examples he has given. What is the point of study as far as spiritual realization is concerned? So two examples he says. One is the holy man who had a book. Actually, Sri Ramakrishna met a monk who had, in all the pages of his book, it was written Om Rama. So he used to study this book very seriously. And so when he was asked what's written in this book you read all the time, and they found it's the same thing written in all the pages, just the name of Rama. That's the gist of all study. The second example he gave is the Gita. So this is something that Sri Ramakrishna would do. It's a play on the words. If you say Gita fast 10 times, Gita, 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 it becomes Tagi. So Tagi is a play on Tyagi. Tyagi means, in Sanskrit, one who renounces. One who renounces worldly goals, worldly possessions, worldly pursuits, and wants only God realization. And then he also points out that whether you are a monk or a householder, this renunciation is necessary. So one may not formally become a monk, one may still remain in the world with family, but internally one has to become monk-like. Going on, Chaitanya Deva set out on a pilgrimage to southern India. One day he saw a man reading the Gita. Another man seated at a distance was listening and weeping. His eyes were swimming in tears. Chaitanya Deva asked him, "Do you understand all this?" The man said, "No, revered sir, I don't understand a word of the text." "Then why are you crying?" asked Chaitanya. The devotee said, "I see Arjuna's chariot before me. I see Lord Krishna and Arjuna seated in front of it, talking. I see this and I weep." Why does a Vijnani keep an attitude of love towards God? The answer is that I consciousness persists. It disappears in the state of samadhi, no doubt, but it comes back. In ordinary people, the I never disappears. You may cut down the Ashwatha tree, but the next day sprouts shoot up. All laugh. Even after the attainment of knowledge, this I consciousness comes up. Nobody knows from where. You dream of a tiger, then you awake, but your heart keeps on palpitating. All our suffering is due to this I. The cow cries hamba, which means I. It's a play on the Sanskrit aham. So hamba means I. Aham means I. That is why it suffers so much. It is yoked to the plow and made to work in rain and sun. Then it may be killed by the butcher. From its hide, shoes are made, and also drums, which are mercilessly beaten. Laughter. Still, it does not escape suffering. At last, strings are made out of its entrails for the bows used in carding cotton. Then it no longer says hamba, hamba, I, but tuhu, thou. Only then are its troubles over. O Lord, I am the servant, thou art the master. I am the child, thou art the mother. So the reference is to when they spin cotton, it's like strings, and they're pulled, they make that singing sound. So it's like tuhu. So he's saying, he's using it like a Bengali word. Tuhu means you only. So thou, instead of saying, the cow was saying hamba, I, now its entrails out of which the strings have been made are singing thou, and that's the final state. Nothing more happens to it after that. So it's a bit of a gruesome and like a story, but the point is, we find rest only when you surrender everything to God, wherever you are, monk, householder, whatever. Again, remember, it's a very well-connected dialogue. All of what happens here is the will of the Divine Mother. Everything. that happens here is the will of the Divine Mother. The I consciousness, just one thing, I mentioned this earlier also. So the I, from a Vedantic perspective, what is the I? It's a function of the mind. Definition, if you go to Vedanta Sara, Abhimanatmika Antakarana Vritti. The function of the mind, which is the appropriating function. So a lot of things are going on here, in the body, in the senses, in the mind. So you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, walking, talking, thinking, remembering, understanding, desiring, hating. Now, to coordinate it all, one more function is necessary. That is called the ego. That is called ahankara, a very precise word in Sanskrit. More literally, if you translate it, it means ego maker, ahankara, which says I, connects it to every activity. So walking is happening, but I am walking, I am talking, I am thinking, I want, I like, I dislike. So all of this is the I is connected to all of it. It's a function of the mind. It's a necessary function of the mind. Without it, you will not have a united single individual. So that's there. Now, the problem is, I am not that. We do not know the distinction between ourselves as consciousness, as awareness, as Atma, and the I. So what happens is, I am totally identified with that particular function of the mind. And through that function of the mind, everything in the body, and through the body, everything associated with the body. So I am, next moment, this person, Sarvapriyananda, this body, this is my cloth, and this is my book. So I and mine comes up and becomes associated to the infinite awareness, limits it into this little spark of awareness in this body mind. And so you become a jiva, a sentient being, and samsara is there. So this ego will come. Why not? See, after one comes back from, say, samadhi, when one is not aware of the world of the body, when you come back, if you're aware of the world, you're aware of the body, you're aware of the sense organs, you're aware of the mind. If everything you're aware of, why not the ego also? The ego also will come up. It's a function of the mind. But what he means there is that how do you deal with it? You are no longer identified with it. For the rest of us, we have no choice. We do not realize what our real nature is. So we are helplessly identified with the ego. But the enlightened person is not identified with the ego. Enlightened person sees the ego as a thing. Just as these are things, thoughts in the mind are also things, the ego is also a thing. Like Shankaracharya sings, Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the memory, I am not the ego, I am not I. I am not I. It seems paradoxical, but just means I am pure consciousness. I am not the ego. Then only he can say Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham. I am of the nature of Shiva. I am of the nature of consciousness and bliss. But the I consciousness, this ego will keep coming back. So what will the ego be? If it's not I am this person, it should be I am the servant of the Lord. I am the child of the Lord. A bhakti relationship is very wholesome. Before enlightenment, it's very helpful for sadhana, for spiritual practice. After enlightenment, Sri Ramakrishna would recommend it that. That's the way you should stay in this world, as a devotee of the Lord, as a devotee of the Divine Mother, who controls the entire universe, who is basically your very self, because the Divine Mother is also Brahman, you are also Brahman ultimately. But in this life, in this manifestation, she is God, and you are the devotee. She is the mother, you are the child. So this distinction. Another thing could be, suppose someone does not want religious God language at all, has aversion, allergy to God language. So is it possible to avoid this path altogether? So this is the thing. Sri Ramakrishna says another option is, let the ego say, like Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, I am pure consciousness, I am the witness consciousness. That is also the ego. So the ego is referring to the enlightenment, the realization that my real nature is existence, consciousness. Please, you can say Aham Brahmasmi, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. That also Sri Ramakrishna says. That's also possible. Remember, that is also a thought in the mind. I am Brahman, I am. In the case of the enlightened person, that's a fact. The thought is representing a truth. What I mean is, even if we say it, even if you or I say it, Aham Brahmasmi, it's still the truth, just that we don't know what it means. The enlightened person knows what it means. Once Rama asked Hanuman, how do you look upon me? And Hanuman said, O Rama, as long as I have the feeling of I see that thou art the whole and I am a part. Thou art the master, I am the servant. But when, O Rama, I have the knowledge of truth, when I realize that thou art I and I am thou. So the three levels, you are the master, I am the servant. This is dualism, Dvaita. You are the whole, I am thy part. This is Vishishta Dvaita. You and I are the same reality. No distinction of part and whole, servant and master, nothing. And just one uniform, unlimited existence, consciousness place. So that is Advaita. But here, the story, one wrinkle has been added to the story by Sri Ramakrishna. He says that when you have the awareness of I, the mind is working with that I, then it's good to maintain these first two attitudes. You are the master, I am the servant, or you're the mother, I am the child, or you are the whole, I am thy part. The relationship of master and servant is the proper one. Since this I must remain, let the rascal be God's servant. So he calls the ego the rascal, because it immediately traps a person. So let it be God's servant. That is harmless. In every action in the world, when I deal with other people, everything belongs to my Lord, I am the servant of the Lord. Or everything belongs to my mother, I am the child of the mother. Or everything, every person, every incident, whatever happens in the world, in my life, is because of the will of the mother. I and mine, these constitute ignorance. My house, my wealth, my learning, my possessions. The attitude that prompts one to say such things comes of ignorance. On the contrary, the attitude born of knowledge is, O God, thou art the master, and all these things belong to thee. House, family, children, attendants, friends are thine. One should constantly remember death. Nothing will survive death. We are born into this world to perform certain duties, like the people who come from the countryside to Calcutta on business. If a visitor goes to a rich man's garden, the superintendent says to him, this is our garden, this is our lake, and so forth. But if the superintendent is dismissed for some misdeed, he can't carry away even his mango wood chest. He sends it secretly by the gatekeeper. Laughter. So the man supervises some rich person's garden, and so he shows people around, come and see, this is our garden, this is our lake, and all that. But he was dismissed from his job. None of it belongs to him. Even his little possessions which he keeps under his bed, that also he has to smuggle out because he's been thrown out of the job by the owner, the boss. So everything like this, like that, it belongs to God, all of it. One great non-dualistic monk whom I really respect very much. So his first words to me was, Swaroop apne jagah theek hai. Your real nature is perfect already. Ab iska kya karna hai? Now what do you do with this body and mind, this life you have got? Ishwar ka hai, Ishwar ko samarpan kar do. It belongs to God. Surrender it to God. And third thing he said was, aur dekho ahankar na ho. And be careful that you're not possessed by ego. Almost exactly what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. If you think it is mine, my life, my goals, my ambitions, my people, so you're caught in samsara. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Only ultimately, there's only two things will happen. One is I'll be unable to fulfill my desires or my goals, and I'll be very frustrated by all this and be bitter and unhappy with life. Or I will succeed more or less. Things will go really well for me, and the result will be a mild disappointment. That's the best result you can think of in life, in worldly life. If everything you get in life, everything goes as you want it to, and really you have had a most privileged life, then the result will be a mild disappointment. That's the best thing. So it is better. The whole thing is based on a false premise. It is not ours. Nothing in this world is ours. Not even this body. Not even the mind and the senses. You call it, if you are atheistic, you'll call it all belongs to nature. If you're devotee, you'll call it belongs to nature. Nature is basically the power of God. It is Maya. It belongs to God. If you recognize that, the simple thing, you're not actually giving up anything. You're not calling on you to do anything dramatic. It's a dramatic change in internal perspective. It's very, very freeing. It's very, very freeing. The result will be you'll be free of the burden of the world, the burden of samsara psychologically, and you will feel the presence of the divine. You feel the presence of the divine. It's wonderful. God laughs on 2 occasions. He laughs when the physician says to the patient's mother, "Don't be afraid, mother. I shall certainly cure your boy." God laughs, saying to himself, "I'm going to take his life." And this man says he will save it. The physician thinks he is the master, forgetting that God is the master. God laughs again when 2 brothers divide their land with a string, saying to each other, "This side is mine and that side is yours." He laughs and says to himself, "The whole universe belongs to me, but they say that they own this portion or that portion." Can one know God through reasoning? Be his servant, surrender yourself to him, and then pray to him. To Vidyasagar with a smile. Well, what is your attitude? Vidyasagar smiling. Someday I shall confide it to you. All laugh. Master laughing. God cannot be realized through mere scholarly reasoning. See, all of this is speaking to Vidyasagar's attitude. We saw it at the beginning of the dialogue. M said, what did Vidyasagar think about spirituality, philosophy? He was very learned. He knew all this. He was sort of agnostic. When M asked him, so what do you think about all the philosophies and all? He said, I think these philosophers were unable to express what was there in their hearts. And so we really don't know about these things. The best thing that we can do is to lead a good life and help people. So Sri Ramakrishna is challenging that. You're right. It cannot be known because it is not an object of rational thinking, of philosophy. So philosophy can only help you, but it cannot objectify God. It is that consciousness by which you are doing philosophy. That is what you're trying to capture. Philosophy cannot capture that. Consciousness objectifies philosophy. Philosophy cannot objectify consciousness. Kena Upanishad says, Yan manasana manute yena hur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. What cannot be thought of, conceived of by the mind, but that by which the mind thinks, that is, know that to be Brahman, not that which you worship as this thing. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. You are right that it cannot be expressed neatly in philosophy, in darshan. Sri Ramakrishna says, as if he's saying to Vidyasagar, you're right when you say that. But you are wrong when you say it cannot be known. It can be known. It can be realized. And it has to be realized. That is the goal of life. That is the whole point. Then, intoxicated with divine love, the master sang, who is there that can understand what Mother Kali is? So we are in Durga Puja and Kali Puja is coming. It's the same thing, the worship of the Divine Mother. Even the 6 darshans are powerless to reveal her. So they play in the word darshan here. Darshan means to see. The original Bengali is Shadadarshan and Apaya darshan. Even the darshanas cannot have darshan of the Divine Mother. So darshan means the philosophy, it means to see. So the philosophies cannot see the Divine Mother. It is she, the scriptures say, that is the inner self. Notice, this is pure Advaita. She, the mother of the universe, is yourself, your inner self, that thou art. The inner self of the yogi, who in self discovers all his joy. She that of her own sweet will inhabits every living thing. The macrocosm and the microcosm rest in the mother's womb. Now do you see how vast it is? In the Mooladhara, the yogi meditates on her, and in the Sahasrara, Who but Shiva has beheld her as she really is? Only Shiva truly knows the Divine Mother as she is. Within the lotus wilderness, she sports beside her mate, the swan. So the swan here refers to Shiva, the Absolute. It's Maya and Brahman, Shakti and Brahman. When man aspires to understand her, Ram Prasad must smile. Ram Prasad is the poet, the mystic. Ram Prasad must smile. To think of knowing her, he says, is quite as laughable as to imagine one can swim across the boundless sea. But while my mind has understood, alas, my heart has not. So I understand. I cannot objectify. I cannot know pure consciousness as an object. But my heart wants to objectify. So that's where bhakti comes in. Devotion comes in. Though but a dwarf, who is a dwarf? The heart. It still would strive to make a captive of the moon. This is a Bengali idiom. A dwarf wants to jump up and touch the moon. So, continuing, the master said, did you notice the macrocosm and the macrocosm, universe, microcosm, ourselves, our individual being, the sentient being. Macrocosm and the microcosm rest in the mother's womb. Now do you see how vast it is? Again, the poet says, even the 6 darshanas are powerless to reveal her. She cannot be realized by means of mere scholarship. One must have faith and love. Let me tell you how powerful faith is. A man was about to cross the sea from Ceylon, which is Sri Lanka, to India. Vibhishana said to him, tie this thing in a corner of your wearing cloth and you will cross the sea safely. You will be able to walk on the water, but be sure not to examine it or you will sink. The man was walking easily on the water of the sea. Such is the strength of faith. When having gone part of the way, he thought, what is this wonderful thing Vibhishana has given me, that I can walk even on water? He untied the knot and found only a leaf with the name Rama written on it. Oh, just this, he thought, and instantly he sank. There is a popular saying that Hanuman jumped over the sea through his faith in Rama's name, but Rama himself had to build a bridge. If a man has faith in God, then he need not be afraid, though he may have committed sin, nay, the vilest sin, and so on. He goes on. A couple of comments, let's look at that. Samra and Richard say, outside of the Advaita perspective, how would you express the things you presumably own? Home, books, phone, car, etc., without using my. Yes, it would express it. You can express it to others as mine, but internally in your heart of hearts, you would know that everything belongs to God. It's all God's property. And that's the attitude taken in any devotional approach, including the body. Yeah, don't go around saying it. From now on, I'll make a change in the way I talk about it and tell everybody else, please, I'm inviting you to God's house and please have some of God's lemonade. And don't do that, it'll confuse people. Deepa and Krishnan say, I'm very curious if anybody has compiled these numerous songs mentioned in the gospel. Yes, they have been compiled. I don't know if it's been published separately, but they have been sung. There's a series called Kathamrita, the songs of the gospel. They must be in CD now, I don't know. Long back, 20 years back, they were in those cassette tapes. Alpana says, intellect can't get to the realization, yet it is said one needs a sharp intellect to get it. Is that true? At least in the path of Advaita Vedanta, you need it. You need it to understand what is being said there. But there also, Swami Bhuteshanji used to say in Bengali, Shukho buddhi noy, shuddha buddhi. So it's not a sukshma. Sukshma means subtle. So Upanishad say the word that you need a subtle mind, but here subtle means pure, a pure mind. So the mind is full of worldly desires, ambitions, and then even the highest IQ, a person like that with high IQ, it's quite entirely possible. Person may have very high IQ, Mensa level, genius level IQ, and be a pretty worldly person also. So will that person, because that person has high IQ, will that person be able to reach enlightenment? No, it won't. It won't work. how does one, Bindu says, how does one marry jnana and bhakti in daily sadhana? One does that. One can do that very happily. Just like Hanuman said, I know that ultimately I and God are one reality. But in my thoughts, in my actions, I am worshipping and praying to God. Because the moment you say, see, bhakti, you're referring to the person Bindu. When you say I am Brahman, it's not that the person Bindu is Brahman. The awareness which has the coating of the person Bindu, which if you discover what awareness is in itself, and then you'll understand how awareness is Brahman. As far as the person Bindu is concerned, it has to be a devotee. So not only marry jnana and bhakti, jnana, bhakti, karma, dhyana. So jnana, the knowledge, bhakti, devotion, love and surrender to God, action, spiritualizing all our actions. A lot of time and energy is taken up by activities in our life. And meditation, withdrawal from action and turning inwards. Patrick says, having this wonderful experience with Sri Ramakrishna, why wouldn't Vidyasagar have made the effort to see him again? I really don't know what happened finally. I don't think they met again. And we don't know what goes on in the mystic world. Maybe that was enough for him. That would take care of him finally. Who knows? Shri says, how would you explain Ichha, God's desire for us or God's consent to our desires? I didn't quite get that. Is Shri there?
In Bengali, we say Taricha.
Right.
So if you look at this life, that everything is happening by divine will. So things that work out, things that don't work out, Taricha. Is it that perspective, or is it we are desiring all these things, we are manifesting all these things, but they're only happening if God consents or if he agrees?
The fact is that anything that happens in the world, the universe, in our lives and everywhere else, it has to happen by the will of God. Here it means the personal God, Saguna Brahman. So literally in that sense, everything, good, bad, no matter whether we like it or dislike it, it all happens by the will of God. And that's a powerful thing that helps us to reconcile ourselves with life and accept it. This lady went up to George Bernard Shaw and said, I accept the universe, she declared. And George Bernard Shaw said, Madam, you had better. We have to accept it because it's God's universe. That's one. And it's not, I do not manifest it because of my particular desires. My particular desires may contribute to it, but many factors are involved here.
So the desires come from God?
No, the desires come from my past conditionings. What I have gone through in this life and past lives, it comes from there. And if you say, but then why would God give me that if he doesn't want me to follow that? What God wants is clearly said in all the scriptures of humanity. So there are desires to be fulfilled, there are desires to be controlled, and even in the desires which are to be fulfilled, there are the limits of ethics and morality which are clearly set out. And God has said in every religion, in every text, that God wants us to be first of all ethical, and then beyond that spiritual. So he has told us what to do with those desires. If you say, what kind of desires would God want? Look at the lives of the saints. Nothing at all for themselves except God and only God, and only good for everybody else. That's them, that's not us. We have to go there. Why? Why not stay with this, my particular set of desires? Suffering. It's not wise. We want things which will not help us, we ultimately want happiness, we want fulfillment. And the way we are trying to get that fulfillment will not work by wanting things in the world. So we are tasting this one after another things in the world and trying to get fulfillment. It's not working. Then we take a look at the bigger picture. Then is there any way at all to get fulfillment in this world? And when we look at spirituality, we look at the lives of the saints and see these people were fulfilled. They found something which fulfilled them. So that seems to be the only way. And see, that also leads to the transcendence of suffering. I don't say suffering will stop for nobody. Old age did not stop for anybody. Disease does not stop for anybody. Accidents, problems do not stop for anybody, even the greatest of saints. But they found some way of rising above it. So that is what spirituality can give us. And that's what God wants for us. That's the purpose of the whole. Vedanta will say that's the whole game of the universe. That's what we are all here for. Different religions will put it in different ways. Some will say it's the play of God. Some will say it's the will of God. Some will say you are God yourself. This is your play. Some will say, like Advaita Vedanta, you are that ultimate reality. This is not even real. This is more like a dream or a movie. Wonderful little book, Abhijit says, written by Swami Buddhananda, Ram Prasad, the Melodious Mystic. Okay, I haven't seen that. I wish and pray for everybody's welfare on this auspicious occasion of Durga Puja. May the Divine Mother Durga bless all of us. May she protect all of us, all people, and all our families, and all our beloved and close ones, and everybody in this world. May her blessings be on all of us. And may she guide us towards enlightenment in this very life. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.